What's going on, everybody? I am back to break down this 9-game NBA DFS slate on DraftKings in FanDuel. Excited to get into the breakdown. As always, giving you guys the top place to get in that green cash line tonight. As always, don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for my lock of the night, my fan favorite segment, guy that I'm picking to be locking in my lineups on DraftKings and FanDuel if I were to pick one. And if you are getting very serious about NBA DFS, I would highly recommend my NBA DFS premium package. Link below in the description. You get access to my premium NBA projections, NBA data sheet, player stats, team stats, play context stats, score plays, injury impact insights, NBA Discord chat access. So if you're playing night in and night out, go ahead and check that out. You can also hop in the Discord package for only $1 the whole entire month of January, giving back to you guys on the new year. And this video is brought to you by Parlay Play. If you're not familiar with Parlay Play, go ahead and check them out. Use that promo code KJK003 or the link below in the description to receive an instant match deposit up to $50. You will also get a risk-free $10 to play with when you sign up today using that code KJK003 or my referral link. So check them out, guys. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start getting into this slate today. As always, we're going to go game by game on DraftKings, break it down, and then we'll review on FanDuel. Make sure we're pointing out some pricing discrepancies, but we'll get an overall idea about game flows, who we're really looking to target on the DraftKings slate first. And then, like I said, we can look at the pricing differences, as always, will come into play when factoring in our lineup. So, Portland taking on Washington is the first game on the slate as far as the total in this game. This game comes in with a 218 over-under with a 7-point spread in favor of the Washington Wizards. So expect it to stay fairly close for the most part. I mean, a 7-point spread isn't ideal, but we do have some injuries on both sides that are definitely going to open up some usage on the Portland side. They continue to be without Damian Lillard, continue to be without CJ McCollum, continue to be without Norman Powell and Larry Nance Jr. So what does that mean? That's going to open up a bunch of minutes and usage for an Anthony Simmons at 7-2. Missed last game out. Expected to return in this one, and we've seen him play mid to upper 30s in every single game so far, and the Washington defense certainly does not scare us. So I think Anthony Simmons is going to be a high usage guy with a bunch of upside that you can be going to this spot, and the same can be said for his counterpart in Jusuf Nurkic at 7-8, continuing to get a ton of usage, a lot of rebounding upside with their bigs being hurt as well. And, I mean, for the most part, the usage is just going to be through the roof. We've seen him take a lot of shots, 17, 12, 13, than he might if these guys were all healthy. So, Jusuf Nurkic, another guy. And then you get down to the more of the mid-range value plays that are continuing to, once again, get a bunch of minutes. Nazir Little, Robert Covington, really not going to be concerned about them being impacted at all by the return of Anthony Simmons. They're the least of my concerns. So both these guys going to continue to be solid mid-range options that are getting lots of minutes. And when you're going down to the bottom here, Dennis Smith Jr. obviously going to be the one that takes the biggest hit with Anthony Simmons returning. We were seeing him only play like 15 to 20 minutes per game with Simmons healthy. So with him being back, Dennis Smith is probably going to be a no play for me. But you can still be taking a look to a Ben McLemore, who's more of a two-guard, who's consistently been playing right around 30 minutes, regardless of who starts at the point guard position. So that would kind of be my overall approach on the Portland Trailblazers side. You have Trendon Watford as a backup, CJ Ellaby as well, getting some minutes, Greg Brown if you want to go there. As far as my overall interest in those guys and how they're grading out my projections right now, though, am I getting too excited about them? Not really. So, I mean, I think there's some other spots that we can go to around that same price range with guys that are getting some larger minutes. So overall, that's kind of what I would be looking to on this side. I mean, really the Portland side, Nurkic, like we talked about, Robert Covington, I mean, Nazir Little, obviously. Running it back on the other side, things aren't quite as interesting. However, there still continues to be no Bradley Beal. So, I mean, the two guys that are really going to have a big amount of usage and big upside are going to be Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyle Kuzma. Spencer Dinwiddie is the one that we really want to be locking in our lineups here. I mean, 6'8" at DraftKings. I mean, that's just too cheap for a guy that gets a big usage bump with there being no Bradley Beal taking on a Portland squad that we know is really bad defensively. Looking at my defensive half-court and putbacks tool over here on Patreon, you can see that Portland is dead last in points per possession rank, 30th overall in the season. 30th in half-court points per play allowed, 18th in putbacks. So, I mean, they're really just not doing a good job of limiting possessions and giving up a lot of points. So, certainly would be willing to get a lot of exposure to Spencer Dinwiddie. And Kyle Kuzma 8-1 certainly has a lot of upside as well. He's priced more appropriately for his role, but we've seen him put up, 47, 50 DraftKings points pretty consistently here. With the centers being back, Thomas Bryant, Montrezl Harrell back in the rotation, and Daniel Gafford, his rebounding upside is going to take a hit. But we still saw him put up 37 DraftKings points last time out. And I think he can continue to keep it rolling, honestly. And I think this is a matchup where you can take that risk at overpaying a little bit, quote, overpaying, and he could actually pay off that price tag. But as far as that, anyone else? Caldwell Pope's going to get a lot of minutes here at 5K now with there being no Bradley Beal, so he's worth taking a risk on. Not exactly the best fantasy point producer, but priced very reasonably, playing mid to low 30s. Gonna like that. And I do think that Montrezl Harrell at 4.5 is pretty interesting here. We saw him play 24 and 21 minutes his first 2 times back. They do have Thomas Bryant and Daniel Gafford on the rotation, so that's obviously going to impact his minutes a little bit here. But he's a really good fantasy point producer. He's only 4.5. He's underpriced, and I think he's someone that can get you there in a hurry at this price tag. So for that reason, I'm willing to take a risk on Montrezl Harrell. That's all for me in this one. Next game on the slate, we have the New York Knicks taking on the Atlanta Hawks as far as a total in this game. This game comes in with a 213.5 over-under with a 3-point spread in favor of the Atlanta Hawks. As far as the injury news in this one, Clint Capella is listed as questionable. That is obviously a very big piece of news. Whether he'll return or not will impact this rotation. As far as last time out, we saw Gorgie Jang get the start. As far as the overall minutes that he played at a 3K price tag, he only went out there and played 15 minutes. I'd say the one that really impacted the most was Okongwu, who's now priced at 4.5. He was playing anywhere from 38, 24 minutes, and he only went down all the way to 16 minutes. So it's certainly worth monitoring, keeping your eyes on who they're going to start. It seems like they don't really want to play the bigs too many minutes, and they're going to try to defer to some more Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Huerter, as well as DeAndre Hunter, John Collins. So if that's the case, that's perfectly fine with me. I'll just be loading up on those guys. Get out Gallinari at 3.7, priced very reasonably. We saw him play 34 minutes last time out. That's going to be phenomenal if he's at this price tag. So certainly would be willing to get some Danilo Gallinari exposure. Same can be said for a Kevin Huerter at 4.6. I mean, that's a really cheap price tag for a guy that's playing right around 30 minutes, can shoot the lights out when he gets hot. It's worth taking my risks on in tournaments. Bogdanovic at 5.3, same thing. His minutes are probably more solidified at times. 23 minutes last time out, but I would expect that to ramp back up here in this one. And you get the point. It's just taking a shot on all these Atlanta guys that are priced pretty reasonably in the mid-range and are getting a bunch of minutes. I mean, Bogdanovic grades out the best for me right now, but outside of DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter, I'd be interested to see if they rest him. He's still minimum salary over here, which is unbelievable. When you look at how many minutes this guy's playing at a 3K price tag, he played 24 and then 30 minutes. So if he plays at 3K, I mean, he's a very easy guy to be locking in your lineups. He's minimum salary. I really have a hard time seeing him not get there. Whether he puts up 15, 20, 35, obviously you want to be on the higher end of that, but at a 3K price tag, he's definitely not going to kill your lineups, and he's going to give you a lot of value to be able to get up to these pay-up options that we want to be fitting in our lineups on this slate. So he is a completely mispriced guy that's going to be really easy to be fitting in your lineup. So that's certainly a big piece of news. Running it back on the other side with the New York Knicks, I'm really not all that interested, to be honest. They're getting pretty healthy. They have Julius Randle back, RJ Barrett back, Alec Burks back, Evan Fournier, Mitchell Robinson. We saw Nerlens Noel return. Quentin Grimes is back in the rotation. Obi Toppin. I guess the only good thing that you could say for these New York Knicks is they got rid of Kevin Knox. So that's going to open up more minutes for who, I guess, is the question. I mean, Emmanuel quickly could see some more minutes at 4.4. Off the bench, these guys overall off the bench could see more minutes. Mitchell Robinson at 4.8, starting to see a little bit more minutes, right around 30 minutes a game at times. So he could be an interesting play, but I'm really not all that interested on the next side of things, to be honest. I mean, I guess you could pay up for Julius Randle now that his price tag has taken a big fall. He was all the way up to 10.1, now he's at 8.6. So I'd be willing to take the price discount on him. He'd be my favorite play on this side by far. Not like that's a hot take or anything. And then Trae Young, John Collins, going to get a lot of usage on the Atlanta side. RJ Barrett's the secondary option, though, I would say. RJ Barrett's really stepped up in his minutes as well. So I should check myself. I feel like I was assuming that people have caught on to this. But RJ Barrett would be the number one play at his price tag. He's still 6'8". He's playing around mid-30s to upper 30s a game. Playing very well. He's put up 31 and 32 real-life points the last 2 times out. So it's worth monitoring his minutes. And as long as Kemba Walker remains out, I think they're pretty solidified. So I like him. And John Collins and Trae Young, the top pay-up options on the other side. With there being no Clint Capella, I think we're going to see John Collins play a lot more center if he is out. So keep your eyes on that Clint Capella news. Trae Young, regardless, top usage guy. It's just a slow-paced game, though. Do I really want to pay up for Trae Young on this slate? I think there's a lot of other better pay-up options, so probably no for me. But just something to keep in mind there. New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Brooklyn Nets. This one's expected to be a very fast-paced game. It comes in with a 229 over under 6.5 point spread in favor of the Brooklyn Nets. So expected to stay close, expected to be very up-paced, and there is no Kyrie Irving. There is no LaMarcus Aldridge. Nicholas Claxton looks as questionable. That's obviously a big piece of news. If he's in, I think I'm really going to like him. So keep your eyes on that news for Nicholas Claxton. And Kevin Durant and James Harden going to be phenomenal plays in this game. There's no Kyrie Irving. Both of them will get a lot of usage. Big bump up. Kevin Durant, we saw him get a hand injury, so just keep your eyes on his injury status. But I would expect him to be good to go in this one. And then as far as anyone else that I'm going to be looking to, on the Brooklyn side, I'm really not too interested outside of maybe going to a Patty Mills, who should play a lot of minutes and get more usage with there being no Kyrie Irving. But honestly, I think it's pretty simple. You're paying up for Kevin Durant. You're paying up for James Harden. We did have some interest in Kessler Edwards last time out. He got the start and played a lot of minutes. So maybe with Durant being back, he finally gets that run again, and maybe he's an interesting option. But we've continuously seen that Steve Nash is pretty inconsistent with his rotations. He'll just ride the hot hand. He's not really committed to anyone in the starting lineup. So certainly keep your eyes on that starting lineup, because whoever starts is going to be a much better play. Last time out, I was amazed. Bruce Brown got the start, and I was in the FanDuel tournaments at the time on that slate, and his ownership was like 4% in the tournaments I was in. I was absolutely stunned. He put up 28.5 DraftKings points, had a really good game over there on FanDuel as well. So once again, keep your eyes on these starting lineups, guys, because sometimes guys are ruled in. People aren't late swapping. If you're late swapping, you have a huge edge. I've been really killing it with late swap lately. And I would encourage you to do the same. Running it back on the other side, the New Orleans Pelicans, it's pretty simple. It's Brandon Ingram, it's Jonas Valanciunas, it's Josh Hart, it's Devontae Graham. Anyone else you're getting cute with outside of Herbert Jones? Herbert Jones is actually priced very reasonably here at 4.6, playing a lot of minutes. He's someone I would be intrigued to play. Typically playing right around 30 to mid-30s in minutes. He put up 32 DraftKings points last time out. 4.6 is a very friendly price tag. Josh Hart at 7K, finally seeing his price tag come up a little bit. I would say he's priced pretty appropriately. There's still room for upside at that price tag, but not quite as easy to be getting him in our lineups. Devontae Graham at 5.5, I think, is certainly underpriced for his upside, so I'd be willing to take some risks there. But then you have the pay-up options of Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, both priced pretty appropriately, but both do have 50, 60 fantasy point upside on any given night. So they're going to be the ones that you're running this game back with. In the fastest-paced game on the slate, makes a lot of sense to be getting a lot of exposure to this one. Those key parts, the Brandon Ingram, the Jonas Valanciunas, the James Harden, the Kevin Durant, etc. And then you can mix in the Herbert Jones, the Josh Hart, the Nicholas Claxton, the guys that are getting big minutes. You get the gist. It's going to be a good game environment to be loading up on those guys. Philadelphia take it on Miami. Next game on the slate. This game right now comes in with a total of a 209.5 over/under. Expected to be a really slow-paced game. For that reason, my interest is going to be pretty limited here. The only thing I would say is we do have a Jimmy Butler revenge game taking on his former team in Philadelphia. I do think that's actually a very relevant thing here. We've seen Jimmy Butler be a little bit personal with some of these matchups in the past, and he's a guy that I don't really typically care about the pace of the game as long as it's competitive. And a lot of times in these slower paced games where it is competitive, we just see it go completely Jimmy Butler mode on this Miami side. He dominates all the usage, so my approach is going to be getting Jimmy Butler exposure tonight and fading the rest of the team. Because although it's a slow paced game, it only comes in with a 209.5 over under. It's a 2-point spread. I think it's going to kind of be the Jimmy Butler show. He's taking on the former team in Philadelphia. That departure really didn't go too well. I know we can't factor in revenge narratives and all that stuff too much in our projection models, but I'm willing to make an exception when it comes to Jimmy Butler. I think he goes out there and has a really big game against these guys. He really is just not fond of them. Mr. Joel Embiid on the other side, I guess you could say the same for him, but he's priced pretty appropriately at 11.4. You're not getting that discount that you are when you go down to Jimmy Butler at 9.8. That's a much different story. So Joel Embiid's probably going to be a fade for me on this slate. Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, I really don't like these guys as much with Jimmy Butler being back in the equation, so I'm not too interested in them. Philadelphia secondary plays. Tyrese Maxey getting a lot of minutes at only a 5.7 price tag. He played 38 minutes the last 2 times out. I do think that he's a pretty intriguing play at that price tag, even though it's a slow-paced game. And as far as anyone else, not getting too excited to be getting too much here. I mean, Georges Niang at 3.1 getting around 20 minutes a game I think is actually kind of a relevant value play here at a 3.1 price tag. I mean, he could go off at 3.1, but we already talked about DeAndre Hunter. We have another game coming up with Trevor Ariza on the Lakers that we can talk about. So I think you're probably getting a little bit too cute if you go there. Andre Drummond at 4.7 is another guy that grades out as a decent play. I mean, he's playing backup center. And we know Andre Drummond can rack up some rebounds in a hurry, but my problem is this game's at such a slow pace, he's probably not going to be able to rack those stats up in too much of a hurry with his limited minutes. So that's probably going to be a no from me. Other than that, I'm really not too intrigued to target this game overall. I think my big thing is just playing some Jimmy Butler in this revenge narrative, this competitive game. Cleveland taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder is the next game on the slate as far as the total in this game. This game comes in right now with a 209.5 over under 5.5 point spread in favor of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So expected to stay close. Not exactly the fastest paced game in the world. On the Cavs side, we have all these guys being healthy now. Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Kevin Love, Lauri Markkanen, Chetty Osman, Lamar Stevens, Isaac Okoro's back in the mix now. And the same can be said on the Oklahoma City side. So my exposure to this game isn't looking like I'm getting too excited about it. Really slow paced. I mean, when I'm looking at my projections, who's my favorite guy to be playing. I mean, they both kind of come in on the Oklahoma City side, to be honest with you, and it would be Darius Bazley and Lou Dort at the price tags of 5.7 and 4.5. But am I getting really intrigued to be playing these guys in this slow-paced game? No, not really. I mean, Lou Dort 5.7 is really cheap, and he shoots a lot of three-pointers on DraftKings, so that's very friendly for the scoring format. He's put up 29, 34 DraftKings points the last few times out, so if you want to go there, like I said, he'd probably be my favorite option. Darius Bazley would be my second favorite option, starting to see his minutes climb up a little bit more towards that 30-minute mark. Last time turned into a blowout, so... Other than that, though, guys, gotta be honest, I really just don't think I want to go to this game too much. I mean, Darius Garland and Josh Giddey at 7.4 and 7.9 both have really big upside at those price tags. Those two would be guys that I'm looking to. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 8.7. I think it's priced pretty appropriately for this matchup. He's had some really big games the last couple times out, but the price tags come up. The pace of games in those were a lot better. I mean, Brooklyn and Washington, much better paced games. So, overall, once again, we have some faster paced games we're going to talk about as we go along this slate that I'd rather be getting my exposure to. And this one, not one of them. Chicago taking on Boston. Next game on the slate, we saw Zach LaVine exit the last game, and he's not going to travel with the team. So that is a big piece of news. Should lead to more minutes for Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, Matt Thomas, but more importantly, going to be a big bump up in usage to a Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. So those three guys are going to become much better plays in this spot. Going to have a lot of interest in those guys. So Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, 8.7 and 8.5. Definitely going to pop a lot more for me with there being no LaVine. Specifically DeMar DeRozan, I think he takes out a lot more on-ball handling responsibilities. Lonzo Ball, the same can be said, though. I mean, he already, obviously, he's the point guard. He's going to have the on-ball handling responsibilities, but I think he gets more shot volume with no Zach LaVine, so his upside becomes much more prominent. Although this game isn't the fastest-paced game in the world, it's a 216.5 over-under, and it's expected to stay close, which actually isn't too bad on this slate when you look at the overall scheme of things. So I'm going to be having most of my exposure to the Chicago Bulls side of this game. On the Boston side of things, with Marcus Smart continuing to be listed as questionable, we really need to keep our eyes on that news. If he is indeed continuing to be ruled out, I think we're going to see Dennis Schroeder continue to take on the starting minutes. He had a really bad game last time out. I know some people in my Discord chat were not happy with him, but guys, I would go right back to the well. That game ended up turning into a bit, it got away a little bit. It's a back-to-back. He only played 25 minutes. I would expect that he plays more if there is no Marcus Smart in this one. And I'm really going to like Dennis Schroeder at 5.1, taking on Chicago, starting at the point guard position. So don't let that last performance, deter you from getting some exposure there because that price tag is very friendly. And, I mean, Kobe White and Troy Brown Jr. on the other side. Kobe White, I think, becomes a pretty phenomenal play as well at 5.2 with there being no Zach LaVine. Although his usage is going to go down with the starting unit, I do think his minutes climb up. So we could see him, play 35 minutes in the spot. And if that's the case at a 5.2 price tag, I'm taking it. You're going to be very happy with the results. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have seen their price tags come down to 9.3, 9.1, so I do think they're starting to become a little bit more intriguing here. Which of those guys you pick, I don't really know how to determine that, and they are pretty negatively correlated, so is this a game where they could both go off? I think so, with this 5-point spread, but overall, I'd be picking one of those guys, depending upon my roster construction, and putting them in my lineups and going from there. I think my favorite play is going to have to be Jason Tatum now. I've been saying for quite some time that it's Jaylen Brown for me because Jaylen Brown's just been at a price discount, but now that they're so closely priced, I think Jason Tatum has a lot more usage within the offense. Whether he's effective or not is a different question, and then that could be when Jaylen Brown kind of steps up and starts taking more shots, but you get the point. Al Horford at 5.2 also grading out is a really good play for me, but we've seen his minutes really chop down. I mean, that's where things are getting a little bit concerning. Robert Williams is starting to become a much more interesting play. They're ramping up his minutes and taking Al Horford's away. So Robert Williams is really starting to become more of a play that I'm wanting to play night in and night out. So just keep your eyes on that. And he's a really good fantasy point producer. So I think some Robert Williams exposure would be smart going forward and tonight. LA Clippers taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Derek White listed as questionable. That's obviously a very big piece of news. If he's back, Lonnie Walker's going to take a hit. Some of these other guards are going to take a hit. As far as the overall pace and everything in this game comes in with a 218.5 over-under, 2.5 point spread in favor of the San Antonio Spurs. So expected to stay close. Not the fastest paced game in the world. And as far as who we're going to in this game, DeJounte Murray is going to continue to dominate the usage on the San Antonio Spurs side. 73, 60 DraftKings points the last couple times out. He has been phenomenal. So if you want to continue to ping up for him, I certainly do think that makes sense in this matchup. The LA Clippers running it back with them as far as who's grading out is a good play for me over here on my projection model right now. I do think that Ivica Zubac at 4.5 is a pretty intriguing play. His minutes have been somewhat limited, but when you're looking at that price tag, I mean, at 4.5 for a Zubac who produces at a very high rate, I think he could get there. So that's more of a tournament play though, only playing around like 20 minutes a game. A little bit scary to be going there. And overall, I mean, my interest in this game is pretty limited. Doug McDermott at 3.9, I think, has some upside for that price tag. We saw him finally return from the health and safety protocols, ramping up his minutes a little bit here, 20, 25 minutes. You can shoot the three ball very effectively if you want to go there. Makes some sense for me. But other than that, honestly, I'm not too intrigued to be going here outside of just blending and mixing some guys on the LA Clippers side with there being no Paul George. We have seen some of these guys, you know, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, Amir Coffey have big games, but it's a little bit unpredictable as to who's going to have the big game. And my favorite at his price tag would probably be Nicholas Batum at 4.2. But overall, I mean, these guys, you're just mixing and blending. I don't really know. Like, Amir Coffey was playing a lot of minutes, 43, 33, and then his minute dipped down to 26. That game was a big blowout, so don't take that too seriously. But Eric Bledsoe, Reggie Jackson, same thing. Minutes are pretty versatile. Usage is pretty versatile. So my favorite is by far Marcus Morris Sr., but they've continued to keep him priced pretty appropriately compared to the rest of the group here. So for that reason, obviously, not quite as intriguing to go there. But overall, I mean, on the Spurs side, Jakob Poeltl at 6.6 I think is pretty intriguing. He's continuing to get quite a bit of minutes and usage, so I'd go there. Then you're just getting into Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, a bunch of guys that are kind of mixing and blending their minutes. Keldon Johnson's priced very reasonably, though, and his minutes have cranked back up. We saw him play 30 minutes last time out. So I guess he would be the other one that I would be willing to really take a hard look to outside of Jakob Poeltl and DeJounte Murray. LA Lakers taking on the Denver Nuggets in this one. This game has a high total. Should be a fun one. Comes in with a 224.5 over-under. 4-point spread in favor of the Denver Nuggets. We have two very high usage guys in this game in LeBron James and Nikola Jokic, both of which I think could be phenomenal pay-up options for you on this slate tonight. 12-6 for Nikola Jokic. Hasn't had that huge game in quite some time, but I think this is the spot where he finally does. Fast up-tempo game. The Lakers defense has been terrible. Guy's the top fantasy point producer in the league. Looking at my sheets here, you can see he's putting up 1.79 DK points per minute. LeBron's at 1.48. That is going to tick up, obviously, a lot with there being no Anthony Davis. So I do think that LeBron James going to continue to be a phenomenal play. Russell Westbrook, I'm probably going to continue to fade at 9.6. He's been terrible. His price tag hasn't come down enough for me. He's a good tournament play because any given night, I guess he could go off. But 2 for 14, 2 for 12, 4 for 14. Really not shooting the ball well. It's a little bit scary to be paying that much for him. We talked about some other guys in the slate like a DeMar DeRozan, etc., that are priced around the same, if not cheaper. I'd rather go to a Malik Monk at 6.5, priced much more reasonably. Actually can shoot the ball and playing around 30 to mid-30s a game. We've seen him play 29 minutes the last couple of times out, but those games have gotten away. I do think we could see him climb back up to those mid-30s. So I think Malik Monk's a pretty intriguing play, especially if Carmelo Anthony's out. Carmelo Anthony listed as questionable. Back soreness, so Taylor Horton-Tucker, kind of Bazemore could be in line to see some more run if he's out. But we've also seen Austin Reeves really take a step forward and play a lot more minutes, get a lot more usage at 3.4. I think he would become pretty intriguing if there is indeed no Carmelo Anthony as maybe a low-on play that people aren't quite on. So I think that's pretty interesting. Running it back on the Denver side of things, Will Barton's listed as questionable, so he is more so probable. It's going to be Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. Those three guys really dominate this usage alongside Monty Morris. Outside of that, really not looking to go too much. And like I said, if Carmelo Anthony's out, I think Taylor Horton-Tucker becomes intriguing, but we still only saw him play 19 minutes last time. I was kind of debating on playing a low-on Taylor Horton-Tucker last time if Carmelo was out. And I'm glad I didn't because he only played 19 minutes. And going forward, I'm a little bit scared that they don't really want to get him too many minutes. So probably going to be a no for me. Going to stick to those main guys that I talked about. A LeBron James, a Malik Monk on the LA Lakers side. A Melo, if he's in, taking on his former team in Denver, I think could be interesting at 4.8. You're seeing him play pretty decent amount of minutes. He finally got that day off. I think they could ramp his minutes back up after getting that rest day. So, yeah, that'd be who I look him to in this one. Orlando taking on Dallas. Last game on the slate. Kristaps Porzingis listed as questionable. Wendell Carter listed as questionable. Mo Bamba listed as questionable. And I would expect Mo Bamba to return in this one. As far as Wendell Carter Jr., we don't really know him. He's more of a questionable one, but I do think that Mo Bamba returns in this one at a 5.8 price tag. As far as the overall pace and everything, this game comes with a 208.5 over under with a 10.5 point spread in favor of Dallas. So Dallas is expected to absolutely blow these guys out. For that reason, I do think there are some intriguing guys that could get some blowout run on the Magic side, most notably RJ Hampton and Mo Wagner at 3.4. Both those guys produce at very high rates. And if this game turns into a blowout, both of those guys could have really, really big games here. RJ Hampton at 3.4, whenever his minutes ramp up, we see him put up some big games. Mo Wagner, as far as how he's concerned. Last time out, we actually saw him play a decent allotment of minutes. He played 28 minutes in a game where he picked up the pace and they kind of swapped off Robin Lopez. So that was interesting to see. Maybe that makes his ownership a little bit higher than it should be. But still, I think this game turns into a blowout. Those are the guys you're looking to. If he stays close, it's going to be more of the Franz Wagner show and Cole Anthony show. 5'9" for Franz Wagner is a very friendly price tag. I'd certainly be willing to target that. Cole Anthony at 7'6". It's a little bit of a slower pace game. So, I mean, that's probably more of a correlation play if you're really wanting to load up on maybe some Luka or something. Running it back with those guys does make some sense. I mean, Luka's in a phenomenal spot here at 11-1, taking on our Orlando squad. That's been really, really bad defensively, so I love targeting these guys. But when you're looking at his price tag on the slate and the fact that this game could possibly turn into a blowout, it's a little bit scary. I mean, we have Kevin Durant at 11K, James Harden at 11.2, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic. So Luka's certainly a valid pay-up option. I just worry about the blowout, and if he doesn't get his full amount of run, and these other guys do, that could be the difference between you coming in first and coming in like fifth. You know what I'm saying? If you're paying up for a Luka in tournaments, so that's kind of going to be my approach there. Moving on over to FanDuel, guys. Before I give you my lock of the night, let's talk about some FanDuel. We already talked about a bunch of stuff, but I want to make sure that we're pointing out any pricing discrepancies. I think we did a pretty good job of summing up the slate overall. Over here, once again, we have the Portland guys. They're shorthanded. They're going to have a lot of usage. I love targeting Robert Covington on FanDuel. The guy's just an absolute blocks and steals machine. It seems like I'm playing this guy every single night in my lineups because it's just too easy. 4 steals, 3 steals, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 3 blocks, 2 blocks, 1 steal. You get 3 points for every block and steal on FanDuel, so I love playing some Robert Covington. A little bit of a biased take, I guess you could say, but the results speak for themselves, and he's getting a lot more minutes and a lot more usage with all these guys being out in Portland. So I think Roko's an interesting play. Yusuf Nurkic at 7.3, obviously. We already talked about it, but he's going to get a big bump up. The only thing that I would say is a argument against him is you can only play one center on FanDuel. We talked about Nikola Vucevic getting a big bump up. We talked about Nikola Jokic as a pay-up option in the LA Lakers game, who obviously has the highest ceiling on the slate. So he's obviously going to be, tough to be fading at times. John Collins, you could play at the center spot. Jonas Valanciunas, we talked about at 7.6. He's priced very friendly over here on FanDuel specifically. So passing him up could be, a opportunity cost. Yusuf Nurkic at 7.3 is a great play though still. So we talked about him. Robert Williams, man, at 7.1, especially considering he has power forward eligibility. On a site like FanDuel, where you get points, those 3 steals, or 3 points for blocks and steals. Once again, we're talking about a blocks and steals machine. You're looking at his game logs. The last couple times out, he hasn't really racked up too many, but the times before, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 7 blocks, 2 steals, 5 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 steals. So another guy I love playing on FanDuel. Gets a lot of blocks and steals. It's worth noting. Mo Bamba, if he returns at 5.8, priced very friendly, so I think he could be a low-end option that people are scared to play. Nicholas Claxton at 5K, if he returns, really going to like him. So those are some guys I'm looking to on FanDuel. The pay-up options, LeBron James, Kevin Durant for me. Going to go to those guys over Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's priced at a bit of a discount, but I just think their usage is a lot higher. We have Kyle Kuzma with the bump up. Julius Randle continuing to see his price tag fall. We talked about it on DraftKings. I think it's getting to the point where it's worth taking some risks on. He hasn't been the most consistent, but the price tag's falling. He could put up 50, and you'll be real happy with that at this point with his price tag dipping. Those are some of the guys we're looking to. You can play Darius Bazley. Aaron Gordon at 5.1's priced very reasonably over here. Keldon Johnson at 5K priced very reasonably. Both guys starters that get a lot of usage, so certainly worth getting some tournament exposure there. We talked about Al Horford's minutes really taking a hit, so I'm going to say no. Danilo Gallinari, if they're going to continue to limit the center minutes and run these guys out more minutes, phenomenal play at 4.4, so someone I'd be looking to. At the small forward position, Jimmy Butler, we talked about him in the Philadelphia revenge narrative. I like him quite a bit. Brandon Ingram in that fast up-tempo game at 8.2. DeMar DeRozan at 8K, with there being no Zach LaVine now. Franz Wagner, 6.2, priced very friendly over here as well. Kevin Huerter at 5.6, priced very reasonably. We talked about those guys. Nazir Little, with the Portland guys still being really hurt. So those are some of the guys we look to. KCP at 5K. You could be going to with the Washington side dealing with no Bradley Beal. DeAndre Hunter also priced very friendly over here at 4.5. Not quite as easy to be playing over here on FanDuel because you can play him at minimum salary on DraftKings, but still really good fantasy point producer. He's a good guy for getting blocks and steals as well on FanDuel. Shooting guard, already pretty much touched on all this. Anthony Simmons at 7.5. RJ Barrett, Josh Giddey, Josh Hart, Franz Wagner. Jalen Brunson is a guy that's priced much differently over here on FanDuel, so he's the one that I want to point out at 6K. We saw him put up 48 FanDuel points last time, 30 the time before. Orlando's terrible defensively. He would be the one that, Luka Doncic, I talked about him not being able to get there in a blowout. Jalen Brunson certainly could get there in a blowout, so I think that's intriguing. Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, going to be a phenomenal pay-up option with there being no Kyrie Irving. I mean, I think he's going to be a big priority for me, so 61, 62 FanDuel points the last 2 times out, 10-3. That's too cheap for him. I'd much rather play James Harden at 10-3 than Luka at 10-4, than DeJounte Murray at 10-5. I'm just going James Harden there. It's not even close for me. Spencer Dinwiddie at 6'9", once again. With there being no Bradley Beal, tons of usage. His price tag's too cheap on both websites, so getting some exposure there. Lonzo Ball, with there being no Zach LaVine. So you get it. You get it. I'm rambling here, but I think we did a pretty good job of summing it up. I just want to point these guys out on FanDuel as well. And with all that being said, guys, before I let you guys go, I got to give you my lock of the night. Before I do, quick reminder, guys, go ahead and check out the premium content over here, patreon.com/KJK_DFS, link below in the description, and check out the sponsor of the program, Parlay Play, KJK003. You can get an instant match deposit up to $50. You also get a risk-free and $10 when you use my promo code or my link down below in the description. All those links are down below in the description, my premium content, my sponsors, all that fun stuff. So check them out. Use that promo code. And with all that being said, let's get into my lock of the night. And my lock of the night tonight is going to be DeMar DeRozan. Taking on this Celtics squad, no more Zach LaVine in this equation. He's going to get a big bump up in usage, should get more shot volume, more assist upside, more on-ball handling responsibilities, and more usage overall when you take LaVine out of the equation. I think his upside is going to go up in a major way here, and we've seen his price tag continuing to go down on the websites. Has not been adjusted for tonight's slate. Gonna love getting him in my lineups. I think the upside is huge here for this current price tag. Get him in your lineups because he is my lock of the night. So there you have it, guys. DeMar DeRozan, get him in your lineups, and that is all from me in this one. If you did enjoy the content, if you could please take a second to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight. Well, hopefully we'll see you later on in the live stream. If we don't, we will see you in the next one.